When my son proudly told the family I got a job at NASA, my sister called him a liar in front of everyone. The way I proved her wrong made her regret it instantly. I, 34M, never thought a family dinner would turn into the moment I'd been waiting for my entire life. But sometimes revenge isn't about planning, it's about patience. The whole thing started 3 months earlier when I lost my job at the aerospace consulting firm. The layoffs hit hard, and I was one of 20 engineers shown the door on a cold Tuesday morning. My wife took it better than I did, reassuring me that something would come up. My son, who was 7, didn't fully understand why I was home all day suddenly, but he seemed happy about it. My sister, though, had a different reaction entirely. She'd always been the successful one in the family. Corporate lawyer, 6-figure salary, expensive car, house in the right neighborhood. Growing up, she was the straight-A student while I struggled with dyslexia and barely made it through high school. I'd worked twice as hard to get my engineering degree, but in her eyes, I was still the screw-up little brother who'd never amount to much. When she found out about the layoff, she didn't offer sympathy. She offered advice I never asked for. She told me I should have seen it coming, that the aerospace sector was unstable, that I should have pursued law or medicine like she'd suggested years ago. She said this at Mom's birthday dinner, in front of everyone, while I sat there trying to keep my composure. My wife squeezed my hand under the table. My son looked confused. Mom changed the subject quickly, but the damage was done. The worst part was how my sister kept bringing it up. Every family gathering, every phone call, she'd find a way to mention my unemployment. She'd ask if I'd found anything yet, but the way she asked made it clear she didn't expect me to. She'd offered to connect me with people in her network who might have entry-level positions available. Entry-level? For someone with 12 years of aerospace engineering experience. I stopped going to family events. My wife would take our son and make excuses for me. I spent my days applying to jobs and my nights wondering if my sister was right about me. Then the email came. It was from a recruiter at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. They'd found my profile and wanted to discuss an opening for a senior aerospace engineer position. I read the email 5 times before I believed it was real. I checked for phishing signs, looked up the recruiter's credentials, even called JPL's main line to verify. It was legitimate. The interview process was intense. 3 rounds of technical interviews, a presentation on propulsion systems, background checks that went back to my childhood. They flew me out to California twice. I didn't tell anyone except my wife. Not Mom, not Dad, definitely not my sister. I wasn't going to say anything until I had the offer letter in hand. When it finally came, I sat in my home office staring at it for an hour. Senior aerospace engineer at JPL, working on Mars mission propulsion systems. A salary that was 40% higher than my old job. Benefits that seemed almost too good to be true. A start date 6 weeks away. My wife cried when I showed her. My son didn't fully understand, but he knew it was important. He kept asking if I was going to space, and I had to explain that I'd be helping send robots to space instead. I still didn't tell my family. I wanted to wait for the right moment. That moment came 2 weeks later at Dad's backyard barbecue. The whole family was there. My sister arrived in her new BMW, making sure everyone noticed. She had her husband with her, a hedge fund manager who talked about money the way normal people talked about weather. My son ran up to his grandparents the moment we arrived, excited about something. I was carrying the potato salad my wife had made, trying to mentally prepare myself for whatever passive-aggressive comments were coming my way. Then I heard my son's voice carrying across the yard. He was telling his grandparents that his daddy got a job at NASA. He was so proud, so excited. He said I was going to help send rockets to Mars. He said it meant we were going to move to California and he'd get to see the beach all the time. The yard went quiet. Everyone turned to look. My parents seemed confused but hopeful. My uncle looked impressed. My cousins started murmuring. And my sister laughed. Not a polite chuckle. A loud, sharp laugh that cut through the silence. She walked over to where my son stood with his grandparents and looked down at him with this condescending smile. She told him that was a very creative story, but lying wasn't nice. She said kids shouldn't make up tales about their parents' jobs, especially when those parents were unemployed. My son's face fell. He looked at her, then at me, confusion and hurt mixing in his eyes. He insisted he wasn't lying, that I'd told him about the job, that we were really moving. My sister knelt down to his level. She told him gently, in that fake sweet voice people use when they're being cruel, that NASA doesn't hire people who get fired from their jobs. She said it was okay to want his daddy to have an important job, but making up stories wasn't the way to handle it. I watched my son's eyes fill with tears. Something in me snapped. I set down the potato salad and walked over. I asked my sister to stand up. She did, with this smug expression, probably expecting me to scold my son for lying or to make some excuse. Instead, I pulled out my phone. I told her to read the email on the screen. I'd kept the offer letter in my inbox, pulling it up occasionally just to remind myself it was real. I handed her my phone and watched her face as she read. The smugness drained away. Her eyes widened. She scrolled up to check the sender's address, probably looking for signs of a scam. She looked at me, then back at the phone. I asked if she needed to see more. She didn't respond. So I took my phone back and pulled up my signed contract, the onboarding documents with the official NASA letterhead, the email chain with my future supervisor discussing project details. The yard was dead silent. I told my sister, loud enough for everyone to hear, that I'd been hired as a senior aerospace engineer at JPL 6 weeks ago. I explained that I'd be working on propulsion systems for the Mars sample return mission. I mentioned the salary range, which was substantially higher than what I'd made before. I said we'd already started looking at houses near Pasadena. Then I looked down at my son and told him he wasn't a liar. I told him he was absolutely right, and I was sorry I'd asked him to keep it secret for so long. I told him he could tell everyone all about it. His face lit up like I'd given him the world. My sister stood there, mouth slightly open, face turning red. She tried to say something about how she was just trying to prevent him from being embarrassed. She claimed she was just being realistic. She said she didn't know, as if that excused calling a 7-year-old a liar in front of the entire family. I cut her off. I told her she was right about one thing. She didn't know. She didn't know because I didn't tell her. I explained that I didn't tell her because every time I'd seen her over the past 3 months, she'd made it clear she thought I was a failure. I said I was tired of her advice, tired of her condescension, tired of her treating me like I was still the struggling kid with dyslexia who couldn't read as fast as her. The words came out calmly, but they landed hard. She tried to interrupt, but I kept going. I reminded her of every comment, every piece of unsolicited advice, every time she'd made me feel small. I told her that while she was busy telling me how to run my life, I was interviewing for one of the most prestigious positions in aerospace engineering. I said that while she was offering me entry-level connections, I was signing a contract to help send humanity to Mars. My mother finally spoke up, asking if this was all true. I showed her the documents too. Dad clapped me on the shoulder, pride evident in his face. My uncle asked technical questions about the mission. My cousins congratulated me. My sister's husband looked uncomfortable. He said they should probably go. My sister nodded numbly and started walking toward their car. But I wasn't done. I called after her. She turned. I told her that next time she decided to call someone a liar, especially a child, she should be absolutely certain she knew what she was talking about. I said that being successful didn't give her the right to tear other people down. I mentioned that some of us had learned humility along with our skills, and maybe she should try it sometime. She got in her car without responding. They left without saying goodbye to anyone. The party continued after they left, but the energy had shifted. People kept asking me about the job, about the move, about what I'd be working on. My son stuck close to me the whole time, occasionally jumping in to add details he'd picked up from our conversations. He told everyone about the Mars rovers with the enthusiasm only a 7-year-old can muster. My mother pulled me aside later. She apologized for not standing up to my sister earlier, for letting those comments slide during previous gatherings. She said she'd always known I'd find success, but she was sorry she hadn't been more vocal about it. She was proud of me, she said, not just for the job, but for how I'd handled the situation. I told her I appreciated it, but I wasn't proud of how I'd confronted my sister. She shook her head and said sometimes people needed to hear hard truths, especially when they'd spent months dishing them out to others. Update 1. The aftermath was messier than I expected. My sister called my mother the next day. According to Mom, she was crying, saying I'd humiliated her in front of the family. She claimed she was only trying to protect my son from disappointment. She said she didn't deserve to be attacked like that. Mom, to her credit, didn't back down. She told my sister that she'd humiliated herself by calling my son a liar without checking facts. She pointed out that if she'd had any doubts, she could have pulled me aside quietly instead of making a scene. She said the confrontation was a direct result of months of condescending behavior. My sister hung up on her. She didn't call me. Instead, she sent a text 3 days later. It was long, rambling, switching between defensiveness and something that almost resembled an apology. She said she never meant to hurt anyone. She claimed she was just worried about me during my unemployment. She insisted she'd always been supportive, that I was misremembering or being too sensitive about her comments. Then, at the end, she said that if I wanted to accept her apology, I should call her. The ball was in my court. I didn't call. My wife thought I should at least respond to the text, even if just to acknowledge it. She said family was important and that holding grudges only hurt everyone. She wasn't wrong, but I also wasn't ready. Not when the apology was wrapped in excuses and attempts to rewrite history. Work preparations kept me busy anyway. JPL sent equipment for my home office. I had virtual meetings with my future team, getting briefed on current project status and challenges. The technical work was fascinating. Propulsion efficiency problems that would affect mission success rates. Real problems with real stakes. My son started telling everyone at school about the move. His teacher called it a great learning opportunity and asked if I'd be willing to do a virtual presentation for the class after I started. I agreed. Watching my kids' pride in what I did made the whole confrontation worth it. 2 weeks after the barbecue, my brother-in-law called. That surprised me. He and I had never been close, but he wasn't a bad guy. He got straight to the point. He said my sister was struggling with what happened. He explained that she'd based a lot of her self-worth on being the successful sibling, and my NASA position had shaken something in her. I told him that wasn't my problem. He sighed and said he knew. He mentioned that my sister had been seeing a therapist, something she'd apparently resisted for years. He said the barbecue incident had been a wake-up call about her behavior. He asked if I'd be willing to talk to her, not to forgive her necessarily, but to give her closure. I thought about it for a few days. My wife encouraged it. My mother thought it might help. I wasn't convinced it would change anything, but I also didn't want to carry anger into my new job, my new life. I called my sister. The conversation was awkward. She'd clearly prepared what to say, probably with her therapist. She acknowledged that she'd been competitive and dismissive. She admitted that watching me struggle with unemployment had made her feel superior, and she was ashamed of that now. She said she'd called my son a liar because she genuinely couldn't believe I'd succeeded so dramatically, and her first instinct was to tear it down. That part, at least, felt honest. I asked her why she'd spent years making me feel inadequate. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said that when we were kids, I'd been everyone's favorite despite struggling in school. Teachers loved my creativity. Parents loved my kindness. Friends loved my humor. She'd worked twice as hard for grades and achievements, and still, I got the affection. She said she'd spent her adult life trying to prove she was better, more successful, more worthy of respect. And when I lost my job, it confirmed something she'd wanted to believe, that her success was deserved and mine was luck. I told her that was a terrible way to view her brother. She agreed. We talked for almost an hour. I didn't forgive her, not completely, but I understood her better. I told her that if she wanted to rebuild any kind of relationship, it would take time and consistent change behavior. No more comments about my choices. No more comparisons. No more treating my success as a threat to hers. She said she'd try. Update 2. We moved to California 5 weeks later. The process was chaotic, packing a house, selling furniture we couldn't take, saying goodbye to friends and neighbors. My son cried the night before we left, suddenly realizing he wouldn't see his best friend every day. My wife balanced excitement about the move with anxiety about leaving her support network. My sister helped us pack. She showed up unannounced 2 weeks before the move with boxes and packing tape. She didn't ask if we needed help. She just started wrapping dishes in newspaper. It was strange seeing her in jeans and an old t-shirt, hair in a messy ponytail, doing manual labor alongside us. We didn't talk much at first. She worked efficiently, labeling boxes in her precise handwriting. But eventually, my son engaged her in conversation about Mars and robots. She admitted she didn't know much about space exploration, so he explained everything I'd taught him with the enthusiasm of a child who'd finally found something he knew more about than the adults. She listened, really listened. She asked him questions. She seemed genuinely interested. Before she left that day, she apologized to my son. She told him she was sorry for calling him a liar, that she'd been wrong, and that she was proud to have such a smart nephew. He hugged her legs and told her it was okay. Simple as that. Kids are incredible that way. The job started exactly as promised. The work was challenging in the best way. Complex problems requiring creative solutions, collaboration with brilliant colleagues, the knowledge that our work would contribute to human space exploration. I spent my first week mostly in orientation and meetings, but by the second week, I was deep into propulsion calculations and efficiency modeling. My son loved California. The weather, the beach, the novelty of palm trees. He made friends quickly at his new school. My wife found a job she was excited about and started building a new social circle. The transition was smoother than any of us expected. My sister and I texted occasionally. Nothing deep, just check-ins about how the move went, how the job was, how the family was doing. She sent my son a Mars rover model for his birthday with a note that said she hoped it would remind him that dreams could come true. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was something. 3 months into the new job, my team achieved a breakthrough on fuel efficiency that could extend mission duration by 18%. It was a collaborative effort, but I'd contributed significantly to the solution. My supervisor mentioned it would likely be included in our next presentation to NASA leadership. I called my parents to tell them. Mom cried. Dad asked technical questions he didn't fully understand, but wanted to hear about anyway. They were proud in that simple, uncomplicated way parents are. I didn't call my sister, but I sent her a text mentioning the breakthrough. She responded immediately with congratulations and said she'd been following the mission news and thought of me. Then she added something that surprised me. She said that watching me succeed had made her reevaluate her own career. She'd realized she'd been chasing prestige and money rather than fulfillment. She'd been volunteering with a legal aid organization and was considering shifting her practice toward nonprofit work. I told her I thought that sounded like something she'd be good at. 6 months after the barbecue, my family visited us in California. Parents, uncle, cousins, and yes, my sister and her husband. We toured JPL, which had special visiting hours for employees' families. My son wore his NASA shirt and gave everyone his own tour based on what I taught him. My sister stood in front of the mission control displays for a long time. She turned to me and said she understood now why this job mattered so much. She said she was sorry it took her so long to see me as something other than competition. I told her we were good. And standing there, in the facility where history was being made, where my work contributed to humanity's reach beyond Earth, I realized I meant it. The anger had faded. The need to prove myself had diminished. I'd found success on my own terms, and that was enough. My son ran up and grabbed my hand, pulling me toward another exhibit. My sister smiled and followed. My wife took photos. My parents looked happy. Sometimes revenge isn't about destroying someone. Sometimes it's about building yourself up so high that their doubts can't reach you anymore. Sometimes it's about proving that success isn't a competition. There's enough of it for everyone if we just stop tearing each other down. And sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well and giving people the chance to grow alongside you. If you like this story, please like this video and subscribe us for more such real-life-based stories. Thanks in advance.